Wish I could tell you that the stories weren't true. I wish I could tell you that they were, part of those fabrications of the Gospels and the Old Testament. You know how they make theological points, so they put things together and, we really only have to take them metaphorically. I wish I could tell you that was true, but they ring too true. Now, they might be fabrications of a sort. They might be constructed in some ways. I mean, after all, they carry a lot of archetypes. They carry the mean king, and they carry the pure child. They carry the fearful people. And after all, they have been put together in a way where it's consciously comparing Moses and Jesus. I mean, both of them were rescued by trickery. Both of them were nurtured and trained while the Pharaoh or the king played out his violent ways in secret. Both of them were in Egypt, which is the very prototype of bondage. It's where you go when you are enslaved. And as fear builds, each one of them leads their people out of that bondage, out of that slavery, and towards freedom. For Moses, it was a move from tyrannical rule to a rule of law, a law which had at its substance and its center the progressive and creative love of God. And for Jesus, that story was to lead people out of the fear they had for their very lives and into a place where they knew about new life, new hope, resurrection life, able to break the fear even of death. But wow, the stories still ring too true. I mean, just in the last decade, we can point to despotic rulers who, in the midst of their own anxiety and fear, attack their own people, commit terrible atrocities. Saddam Hussein, horrible. Gaddafi, horrible. And now Assad, attacking his people week after week after week. And why? Because he's afraid. The fear builds, the fear grows. It happens all the time. It's why in my dreams, just from time to time, this cry comes out of my heart. Why do people have to be so mean? It happens all over the place. The powerful, afraid that they will lose their position, lose their comfort, lose their way of being, their way of life. They abuse or use or act without care for anybody else around them. Is this not what the Occupy movement is calling to account? That people act without regard for others because they are afraid to lose their position. People running corporations actually afraid that they might lose their position if their particular place doesn't get a bottom line that's bigger. And so they act out of integrity, out of ethics, and hurt other people along the way. And really, in any community, the politics of a community, people end up using all kinds of awful methods to tear people down and tear people apart. It's becoming legion in the blogosphere these days. Spread a rumor if you want to take somebody down. Doesn't matter if it's based on fact. And how about Herbert Kane this week? Now understand, my politics are such, I don't want the man anywhere near the White House. But really, it wasn't his friends that brought these affairs to light. His friends saw him as a man of character who could lead, regardless of whatever these things were. And believe me, we cannot know from the outside looking in what these relationships were. No, it's the enemies that came out and drove this story. built the fear in the people, built the fear in Cain himself, until finally he bent to that fear and withdrew yesterday. As I said, I don't want him anywhere near the White House, but I am sorry he withdrew. Sorry that the fear, that the power that came after him tore him down. I'd rather we pull the lever against him for his ideas, not things like this. No. Fear operates this way. The stories, the despotic rulers, those who were selfish in the way they ran companies, those who were seeking political power, they all end up dealing with this nexus of power and fear and freedom. They all end up wrestling with these things, looking for security, looking for the freedom that comes when you have enough power that you are able to do what you want to do without restraint and remain secure. And as those things are threatened, you begin to apply violence and methods that make other people afraid so that they will want their security and as much freedom as they can get, and they cower and pull back. It's the way it works. Pharaoh was afraid. And as the people of Israel increased, they weren't looking to do violence against Pharaoh. And yet Pharaoh became more and more afraid. The king wasn't looking to get after Herod. It was a boy. Herod was going to die before the boy ever even grew. And yet Herod became afraid, and the fear grew more and more. It's the way of things. We seek to apply our power so that we can find that freedom, that security, so that we know that we are in a place of stability, joy, quality. But it's not how it works. It's just not how it works. It's not how you get to that place of stability and hope and joy. Being in a position where you have enough power to control the things around you is not how you get to a position of stability and joy. It's never worked that way. Poor men want to be rich. Rich men want to be king. The king ain't satisfied till he rules everything. There is no limit. No way to get to that place where you feel completely secure because you have enough power to hold on to your life and keep others at bay. It's inevitable. Whenever power applies violence onto people and seeks to curtail freedom, what happens is true freedom emerges. It happens everywhere. It is in the very nature of things. Because this freedom that I'm talking about is a freedom not based on the ability to control circumstances around us, but rather a freedom that comes from knowing that the presence of God lives in each one of us, that what gives our life value, that what carries us forward is that creative power that moves things from a place where they are in bondage to a place of freedom, from a place where they are sick to a place where they are healed, from a place where they are feeling shrunken and dead to a place where they can explode with the creative love of God. It permeates each and every one of you. Friday night, Barbara and I were at a long Shabbat dinner. Long, though, because Mark had us chanting for 20 minutes, 30 minutes, 40 minutes. And then in the silence that followed, you could sense the sweetness of the presence of the God who loves you and gives you peace and gives you security. The freedom that emerges when power applies its fear on us is the freedom that comes when we are connected to and know the power and the presence of God in our lives. Not a magic power, a true and real power. Though our life be forfeit, we come to a moment where we are confident that the God of creation will not waste that which is us, that which is true, but will instead bring us into new and glorious beauty. It's a freedom where we can act in integrity. Rather than acting in response to the violence, we can act in integrity. We act out of who we truly are. The people that are loved and respond to that presence of God. We are able to act without fear. And so regardless of circumstances, we are alive and we are free. That's the power we read about in these stories. That's the power that comes when Pharaoh tries to kill the children. Instead, what emerges is a new freedom and a new hope, a people that are willing to grasp an opportunity and find a way to live together with God at the center. It's what comes when Jesus leads the people to understand that they can break out of the fear of the violence of the Roman Empire that stands around them, and instead realize that though their life be forfeit, resurrection will occur. Resurrection's a hard concept for us these days. I'm not talking about magic here. I'm not talking about a God who's out there and says, ooh, I think I'll raise that one from the dead. Show him it can be done. No. Something happened on that morning